Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Fanatic, and I am here with my first week 1 game breakdown. I'm going to be doing 3 of these once every other week, so basically 1 every 2 weeks. So I'm going to be doing the Florida-Miami game, which I'm doing right now, the Auburn and Oregon game, and the Boise State and Florida State game. I only have time for 3 of these games, and I wanted to pick 3 games that I think would be the most entertaining. If you guys want me to do maybe another game that you guys really want me to do, I could make an exception and throw in a special one in there. It'd have to be a pretty good game, though. There's only like 2 or 3 that I would actually consider throwing in there as extra. I'm not going to throw in some boring game or some game that'll be a blowout. So Florida and Miami takes place in week 0. It's a very interesting matchup. Some people are saying that Florida is definitely the favorite. Some people are saying Miami could have a shot to win here. In my Florida season breakdown, I gave this a 34-17 victory for Florida. But the more I've dove into this game, I realize it's a lot closer than I initially thought. And Miami does have a realistic possibility to not only compete, but maybe even win. So let's just kind of cover the basics before we get into a position-by-position breakdown. So I'm kind of basing this off of what SG1 Sports did. You guys probably know who SG1 Sports is. Most of my videos get recommended by their videos, so if you guys watch them, you probably watch me. So let's go ahead and just, again, cover the basics. So here's the betting odds, or not the betting odds, just the prediction that these websites have. 24/7 Sports has Florida as an 8.5-point favorite. Odds Shark has Florida only as a 2-point favorite. Saturday Blitz has Florida as an 11-point favorite. ESPN, they don't have an actual score, but they do have Florida given a 73% chance of winning. Bleacher Report has Florida as a 3-point favorite. Vegas has Florida as a 7.5 favorite. And College Football Unlimited has Florida as a 12-point favorite. Again, we are not sponsored by any of them. Those are just websites that I like to go to get their predictions on it. I felt like it was good for the video if I got their predictions. So, from last year, each of these teams' passing offenses. Florida ranked 82, Miami ranked 112. So neither of these teams were anything special in the passing category. I think it's safe to say that. Passing defense, here's where both these teams get pretty elite. Florida 13, Miami first in the country. So Miami and Florida both have pretty good passing defenses and just average passing offenses if we're talking about last year. Rushing offense, Florida 27, Miami 45. So Florida was pretty good, Miami was kind of average in that. Rushing defense, Florida 64, Miami 42. Again, Miami's decent to good, Florida's just average. And Florida's record last season was 10-3 with a New Year's Six bowl win. Miami's was 7-6. They started off the year hot with Mark Richt. All of a sudden, Mark Richt retires. They tank. It was a rough year for Miami last year. So, without further ado, let's start the real position-by-position breakdowns for these teams. So, both of these teams' quarterbacks, I think, are pretty decent. Nothing insane, but pretty decent quarterbacks from both squads. Tate Martell, the transfer from Ohio State, he was the backup to Dwayne Haskins. What I've seen from him, he seems like a decent quarterback. He can be a dual threat whenever he needs to. He's nothing insane, but he is definitely a viable starting option for a team like Miami. Felipe Franks showed a ton of progression from his first year. His first year was terrible. His second year was pretty good. He wasn't a star, but he was a viable starting option for Florida. And this year he might start developing into maybe that star that some people want him to be, like Dan Mullen thinks he can be. So I'm giving Miami's quarterback, Tate Martell, a B+, and the Florida quarterback, Felipe Franks, an A-. I think they're pretty close in this department. I'm going to give the slight edge to Felipe Franks just because I haven't seen enough of Tate Martell to really make a good, solid prediction. So I'm giving the edge to Florida in the quarterback department. So we turn our attention to the running backs. So DJ Dallas for Miami, impressed last year, averaged almost 6 yards per carry. I think he's going to improve even more this season, and he's going to come out. He's going to really, really impress. I think he's a great running back for Miami. You have Lorenzo Lingard. I'm not really sure what to expect for Lorenzo Lingard. He impressed a little bit in the spring, but he's nothing special in my opinion. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen enough of him. Cameron Harris, he is, I think he was the starter at one point, I'm pretty sure. He was up there in the depth chart. He's 3rd or 4th now, so he's fallen. I'm not sure if that's a knock on Cameron Harris or the promotion of this pretty deep Miami running backs crew. So I know you're wondering, why do I have him at B-? One, I'm not sure they're really defined yet. The Miami running back, DJ Dallas, their starter, is definitely. But I'm not sure if they... I know that they're pretty deep at running back. They have enough running backs, but are they proven? I'm not sure, so I'm just going to put them at B- for right now. Go safe. So, Florida's running backs. So, as Florida's running backs go, I would have had him at an A or an A+, but LaMichael Pirine, I'm not sure if he's been kicked off the team or not. He could be facing battery charges. From what I've heard, he was under the medication of some injury, so that's why I think he's not 100% kicked off the team. I don't know yet. He might be. Please let me know down in the comments below. But a tow truck driver tried to tow his mother's car. He grabbed him by the arm during an argument. That's really all it led to. He didn't hit the guy, so I'm not sure if he's even going to face charges or be even kicked off the team. If he hasn't been kicked off the team, go ahead and bump Florida up to an A or an A+. But I'm going to do worst case scenario. I'm going to say he's been kicked off the team. I'm still going to give Florida an A-. They have Malik Davis, who had an injury last year, but he really impressed the year before. He's almost like a Kadarius Toney, just a more physical running back. Kadarius Toney's Florida's wide receiver running back hybrid. He's more suitable at running back. He's physical, he's fast, he's a really good running back. And then there's Dameon Pierce, the young guy. I think these two could be like Thunder and Lightning. Dameon Pierce obviously being the Thunder, and Malik Davis being the Lightning. I have high hopes for both of these players, and hey, if LaMichael Pirine isn't kicked off the team and he's still here, that's just a bonus. But Florida, I think, is definitely set at running back. Next up, we have the wide receivers for both Miami and Florida. So I'm going to go ahead and cover Miami first. Miami has a very, very young, talented, inexperienced crew. Inexperience is the main key. From a talent perspective, they're up in the B+ A- margin. I don't know what they're going to be this year, if they're going to fulfill their potential. That's why I only have them at B. They do have, this is where I'm going to kind of mix in tight ends with it. I'm basically saying wide receivers / tight end. Brevon Jordan, he's really good at tight end for Miami. He's a stud. You also have Jeff Thomas, who I think is the go-to guy. He's one of the few kind of experienced players on here. KJ Osborne, transfer from Buffalo. Again, I don't know how good he's going to be once he gets into elite talent, but if he's anything like he was at Buffalo, he'll be good. Brian Hightower, just another one of those kind of younger players. Again, just a ton of young talent on this team. It's just inexperience or young, however you want to look at it. Do you see this as potential or as a way down? If you think that these wide receivers are going to fulfill their potential this year, it's a plus. If you think it'll take them a couple years, it's a minus. But I'm saying this as worst case scenario. If they don't fulfill their potential, they still have a couple solid receivers to turn to. It won't be a concern in my opinion. So Florida's wide receivers, the best wide receiver core in the country. You heard it here first. I'm just going to say the names. Kadarius Toney, Trevon Grimes, Freddie Swain, Van Jefferson, James Copeland. Wait, is it James Copeland? I'm trying to remember. It doesn't matter. This crew is elite. I mean, Freddie Swain has proven himself. He's been there for a while. He's elite. Kadarius Toney is one of the most exciting players in all of college football. Trevon Grimes, I think, is also elite. Van Jefferson is kind of like Trevon Grimes. He's one of those tall, throw-it-up receivers. There is no better group, in my opinion, than the group that they have here at the University of Florida. And it's Jacob Copeland, not James Copeland. My mistake. Again, there is no better group than Florida. Florida is elite at wide receiver crew, and there's where I think Florida has the main edge, is their wide receiver crew. So let's move on to the offensive line. So here's where I think people get kind of misconstrued. A ton of people think Florida's offensive line is terrible. It's bad, I wouldn't say terrible. I'm going to explain that in a second. But as far as Miami's offensive line, it's decent. It can hold up. It's certainly not going to be a strength for them. It's an okay offensive line. Once the injuries stack up, that's when I think you can concern about it. But it's not a concern right now. They're just below average. They're fine. They're average ACC O-line. If no serious injuries happen, it's not going to be a concern. There's going to be your regular offensive line. So here comes Florida. So I know what you people are saying. Florida should be an F or a D-. For this game, I'm going to give them a C+, because just from a starting perspective, they are not that great, but they're okay. They're an average SEC O-line. They're a decent O-line. It's whenever the injuries happen, because there's a lot of inexperienced players behind injuries. So whenever we're talking later on in the season is when I can put them down at a D and a D-. But there's probably not going to be a ton of injuries here. So just from a starting line perspective, I'm giving them a C-. I don't think it's a big concern right now, but once those big injuries start happening, I think it could be catastrophic for the Florida team. But for this game only, it's a slight concern, but not a huge concern as some people might think. So now, once everybody's kind of convinced that Florida has the edge on the offensive side, here's where the defensives come in. And right now, I'm giving Miami their their second edge of the game. As far as defensive linemen go, they have a very solid defensive line, a couple transfers coming in. They have a lot of depth. They don't have a true star, but they have a bunch of solid defensive linemen. I think it could end up being a strength for them. Hopefully some stars emerge, and once some stars emerge, this could be a truly elite defensive line. But for right now, it's just a bunch of solid players that were waiting to kind of rise from the ashes and transform into those stars. Florida has kind of a similar scenario for them at defensive line. I don't think they have as many solid players, but then again, it's not a huge difference in defensive line between Florida and Miami. I think both teams are pretty solid at defensive line, and as the younger players kind of transform into these stars, it could end up being two elite defensive lines at the end of the year with Florida and Miami. So as we turn to the linebacker position, I think this is where Miami has the biggest advantage over the Gators. Zach McCloud, Zach Quarterman, Michael Pickney, to name a few. Miami has a lot of elite linebackers all over the linebackers, outside rushers, inside rushers, and they have depth at those positions too. Linebacker will not be a concern. In fact, it'll be a huge strength for this Miami team in 2019 and in this game. So Florida's linebacking crew won't be a strength or a disadvantage for them. They have David Reese, who I think is kind of like Jared Davis from a couple years ago. He's not ultra talented, but he's smart, old-fashioned, sometimes plays without gloves on. He hits hard. He's a leader for this team. He keeps this linebacker crew stable. I'm a big fan of David Reese. Other than that, Florida doesn't really have any standout players at linebacker. Sometimes Jeremiah Moon will go back in linebacker. He's kind of a defensive lineman-linebacker hybrid. But I don't think linebacker is really anything to cover for Florida. Not a strength, not a weakness. They're fine whenever it comes to linebacker. So sorry guys, I made a mistake. I accidentally said Zach Quarterman instead of Shaq Quarterman. Please don't comment down below. You're an idiot. Please. I corrected myself. If you guys have commented that, please delete it. I would appreciate that. But back in breakdown mode, whenever it comes to quarterbacks for Miami, again, they aren't they're talented, but they're inexperienced. It's very, very interesting for Miami. It's kind of the wide receiver. So in the perimeter, Miami's talented, but they're not experienced. Florida's talented and experienced on the perimeter. But some players that Miami has is Trajan Bandy and DJ Ivy. Again, both pretty young players. I mean, it's just a young, talented crew. And again, it's like the wide receivers. Do you see that as a strength or a weakness for this game? That will decide a lot whenever you're talking about this. And on to Florida's cornerbacks. Florida, again, is loaded at the cornerback position. They have one of the best cornerbacks in the entire college football league. He's a top 5, top 10 player in college football, in my opinion. C.J. Henderson, he's a stud. I absolutely love C.J. Henderson. Marco Wilson's pretty good as well, Quincy Wilson's brother. But C.J. Henderson is just on another level. than all the other cornerbacks on Florida's team. So Florida gets an A+ for wide receivers and cornerbacks. So on to our last category as the coaches. Manny Diaz, this is his first head coaching job. He seems like a great defensive mind. From what I've seen of him, as defensive coordinator at Miami and at other spots, he seems like a pretty good coach. I'm only ranking him a B+ because I haven't seen what he can do as a head coach before. I do think he'll be a very, very solid and good head coach for Miami. I just can't rate him in the A bracket because I haven't seen enough of him. Dan Mullen, I'm a huge fan of Dan Mullen. My boy, Dan Mullen. In case you guys didn't know, I'm a Florida fan. I am coming at this as an unbiased perspective, though. That's why I didn't, for the predictions on those websites, I didn't put any Miami or Florida websites. And I'm not really emotionally invested in this. I just want to get the most realistic score, I think, personally, that I think will happen. So Dan Mullen is an A. He is a great offensive mind. He has great defense coordinator in Todd Grantham. I love Dan Mullen. I mean, if we're talking recruiting, we might bump him down to an A-, but just from a coaching perspective, Dan Mullen is an extremely good coach, one of the best there is in college football. He's an excellent offensive mind, and more particularly a quarterback mind. So Dan Mullen gets an A, and this goes to Florida. So my final prediction is a Florida win 32-24 by 8. Sorry, Miami fans. Now, Miami, if they want to win this, needs this to be a trenches battle. Miami is the more physical football team right now. Florida needs this to be on the perimeter. Florida is by far the more athletic team by now. I think Dan Mullen is such a good offensive mind, and Manny Diaz's slight inexperience as a head coach will make the difference. I think head coaches are going to have a lot to do in this game because these teams are so evenly matched, and it comes down to just game planning and scheming mostly, and I am going to trust Dan Mullen more than Manny Diaz. That's not a knock on Manny Diaz. He hasn't been a head coach before, so I can't really make an assumption. So I think Dan Mullen is going to find a way to get this game out on the perimeter and use Florida's athletes to their advantage. And Felipe Franks, this game is going to come down to Felipe Franks. I think he's going to be able to step up for this game and have Florida's offenses with all their athletes on the edge make the difference. This is not to say Miami does not have a shot to win. I think 7 out of 10 times Florida's the victor. But then again, it is a realistic possibility for Miami to win. If Manny Diaz proves me wrong and finds a way to keep this game in the inside, in the trenches, then I think Miami is definitely the clear winner here. But I'm just not sure how you're going to be able to keep this game in the trenches. I think it's much easier to keep the game on the perimeter than it is to keep it in the trenches. That's why I'm giving Florida the 32-24 victory here. So this is not to say that Miami won't have a great year. I have Miami going 9-3. Check out that schedule preview. I have a schedule preview of them up on my channel. I also have a schedule preview of Florida up on my channel. I had them going 11-1 on that video. I have them going 12-2 right now. I think they'll lose to Georgia right now. It's kind of a 50-50 football game, so I switch every day between 11-1 and 10-2 for Florida. Again, I'm coming at this from an unbiased perspective. I wouldn't be doing YouTube if I was going to be biased, because nobody likes a video where you just express your opinion and don't use any facts. So what I'm trying to do, that's why I'm doing all these predictions, like from the websites, to really sway my opinion on this game, is because I want this to be unbiased. I want you guys to click on this video, one, enjoy the entertainment aspect of it. That's why I crack a few jokes here and there. Not many of them work necessarily, like that one, for example. So I just want you guys to enjoy the video and not have to have me roast Miami. That's why I'm not going to roast Miami, even though I want Florida to win. From my mind in this video, I don't want a team to win. I need to figure out kind of what I think would be the best prediction, and I think this is the best prediction that I can come up with, is a Florida 32-24 victory. So Miami fans, please don't dislike the video. I think you guys are going to have a successful year and a successful future. Make sure you guys go check out my schedule preview and see why. Again, if you guys have a differing opinion, I have no problem with carrying on a discussion. Make sure I would love you guys to be polite about it. I mean, I'm not going to take down a comment. I mean, you guys can put what you want as long as they're not ridiculous in language, I'm not going to take it down. That doesn't really get to me because, I mean, we have different opinions on a football game isn't exactly keeping me up at night. But I will carry on discussions if you guys are polite in it, and I would love to see Miami's point of view, not just, you suck, Miami's going to win the Natty, 15-0, baby. I mean, I would love for some Miami fans to really carry on conversations with me and other Florida fans in the comments section. Again, I'm not sure how many views this video is going to get, whether it gets kind of my scheduled preview amount of videos, which is a decent amount, nothing too special, or a lot of views, or not many. I'm not really sure. I hope it gets a lot, and I hope to carry on conversations with you guys in the comments section. But this game is close enough so where I think about 80% of Miami fans think that Miami's going to win, and about 90% of Florida fans think Florida's going to win. So if you're a Miami fan, you probably think Miami's going to win. If you're a Florida fan, you probably think Florida's going to win. That's how close this game is. As you can see from all the unbiased sites, all of them actually have Florida. The highest was a 12-point win for Florida, so none of them have it as a blowout. All of them have it as pretty competitive and entertaining games. But in the end, I think Florida, and more specifically Dan Mullen, is going to find a way to get this game out in the perimeter and school some of the younger Miami athletes. If Miami brings it, they could definitely win this game. If Miami keeps this game in the trenches, they probably will win this game. But I am going to go with Florida 32-24. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out all my other Miami and Florida content. Just check out all my other content in general. I think you guys might like it. If you guys do like it, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I have more videos coming out. More Week 1 game previews, 2 more before the college football season starts, of Oregon and Auburn, and of Boise State and Florida State. If you guys really want to see another game, I'll make an exception for you guys. If it's like multiple people wanting a specific game, I will definitely make an exception. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day, and peace.